To call the November 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Hayden City Council to order. Like a roll call of council members, please.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Here.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
And Councilmember White?
Yes.
I'd like to ask Council President Roeder to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first I'd like to call for any corrections or additions to the agenda tonight from members of council. Hearing none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. For those of you who may be new to our meeting tonight, our city does business from 8 till 5 p.m., 5 days a week. Some of the things that our city does requires the approval or the consent of city council, and that's what our consent calendar is all about. Tonight for the consent calendar, we have 1A, approval of the November 14th, 2022 city council meeting minutes. 1B, approval of the memorandum of understanding with Kootenai County for the sheriff's dock at Honeysuckle Beach. 1C, approval of RFI LLC land acquisition documents for Ramsey Road Extension Project. 1D, approval of administrative settlement for Sharporta Fendich right-of-way acquisition for Ramsey Road Extension Project. 1E, approval of PZE 22-0096, Westbrook Zone Development Agreement written decision. 1F, approval of the Westbrook Release of Zoning Development Agreement. 1G, approval of contract with Croc Coatings for the public restroom flooring repairs in our city parks. 1H, the approval of bills for payment. Council members, do you have any questions or concerns about any of the consent calendar items?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember White.
Yes, I was wondering if, I'd like it to know exactly where just for the sake of the people here, where that dock is going to go. That's item 1B.
Yes, we actually have Sergeant Miller here. Thank you for bringing that up,
Okay.
Councilmember White. Sergeant Miller here, who can explain to us what's going on with that. If you'd like to take a moment, if you'd sit up the podium so folks recording could hear this.
There's a map included in the item.
Sergeant Ryan Miller, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, Recreation Safety Supervisor. Yes, this dock, the plans is to have it at the current boat launch facility it's going to be the south dock that goes on the south side of the boat launch all the way down towards the end. On the outside, so it's not to interfere with the boat launch traffic at all.
Okay. So that's the portion of the dock that curves?
Correct,
straight
yes.
and curves, and it'll be on the outside of that.
Yes.
curve.
Yeah, we found that was going to be the most unintrusive. It's not going to get in people's way being out in that section.
Okay. Is that strip of dock open to the public, or is it gated off?
No, it is open to the public currently. The plans in the future is to add some type of gate in between that dock and the sheriff's office, or the dock being used by the sheriff's office.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else?
I don't have a question about, thank you, Mayor, but, and I don't know if Councilman White has this drawing.
Yes.
Okay, but this is, I guess, this is what we've got. I don't know if you can even project it up there, but here's the main, if I'm seeing this correctly, here's the existing dock. And then this is Hayden Lake out here where it kind of bends. And on the outside of it, okay, this will be the new marine dock, correct?
Correct. That's on the Honeysuckle Bay side
Right.
on the south, correct?
The south side of the dock here. This would be your launch ramp in here.
Yes.
Right, and this would be the bay over here, right?
Great. Thank you very much.
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
I have
President Roeder.
a comment. Reading the Coeur d'Alene Press, I believe it was last week, and I really appreciate reporters because that's how we get important information. So the city of Coeur d'Alene was able to obtain a $500,000 grant.
Able to or filing for?
My understanding is they got the grant, or
Is that for the docks over on the buoy side?
Yes.
That's a WIF grant. The application is, they haven't applied for it yet. They're due to apply on December 7th at the Waterways Advisory Board meeting.
Okay.
We also put in for those grants as well. It's a Parks and Waterways grant.
I think it said they got permission to
Apply for it. Okay, so my understanding is it was for replacement of docks.
Correct.
Because they said the expense of repairing the docks over the years has gotten to be more and more and more. Now you might as well fix them. So my question is that a type of grant that we should be looking into for this project? And also for our docks, if that's also a similar problem, because I know we just spent $50,000 on repairs to our docks here this year. So I just want to throw out that idea that there's an opportunity there that could help fund either the sheriff's dock or our own docks for replacement.
I saw the same thing, and for future repairs to the dock, I thought maybe we could look at that with grant.
And if anyone ever has any questions offline, we can talk about it. I'm familiar with the WIF grant. We use it usually annually for either boat projects or facilities projects as well. So I could definitely give you some information about that offline.
But that grant isn't just specifically for public safety.
It is not. No, for example, the city of Sandpoint used it a multiple phase project over years to do their public docks as well. So no, it's open to government entities in the state and nonprofits.
Thank you.
We'll probably, if we want to continue this more, we should probably continue it at another time.
Sure.
Do members of council, before you leave, do other members of council have any questions of Sergeant Miller? Thank you, Sergeant, for coming tonight. We certainly do appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I might just mention the money that we're using to construct this is impacting money that we're losing if we don't use it. And so that's a part of why we didn't look at a grant for this particular piece.
Good point. Thank you. Do we have any further? Yes, Councilmember White.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask a question about item 1C, the Ramsey Road Extension right-of-way purchase, and also 1D, the right-of-way extension project.
Certainly.
So I just want to ask, so with both of these items, what are the feelings of the property owners? Are they happy with this settlement? Is this... Alan, what can you tell me about this?
I don't know how to characterize their emotions on, I mean, I think that RFI is, I'm going to say, I don't know if anybody's happy with it, they're fine with it.
Okay, they're fine with it, and...
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess perhaps if I could put words in your mouth, and please tell me if I'm off base, they're agreeable with it enough to the point that they are willing to settle and sell it. Okay.
They're agreeable with these terms.
They're agreeable. Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions on the consent calendar? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So motion. Second.
Motion and second. Do we have any other further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield,
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest,
Yes.
and Council President Roeder.
Yes.
Motion passes. Now is time for our visitor and public comment section of the meeting. If anyone would like to provide any public comment to the council, we'd like to have you fill out a form that's at the back of the room there. Abby, do we have any public comment? We have no public comment requests at this time. Anyone would like to, please fill out a form. I'm not seeing a mass movement to the back of the room, so I'm going to assume that we have no public comment this evening. All right. Our next item of business is going to be a public hearing tonight. The public hearing is going to be on the Bingham Zone Map Amendment request. I'd like to explain to folks exactly what a public hearing is. First of all, our staff will introduce the subject case. Then we will give the applicant an opportunity to present their case to be limited to 15 minutes. Then the staff will present a summary of the staff report. We will then have an opportunity for public comment and the applicant's rebuttal. I will then close the public hearing and we will begin council deliberations. Donna, would you like to give us a brief introduction to the subject case, please?
Good evening. Tonight, we're here to look at the Bingham Zone Map Amendment. That's PZE 220125. Just as a matter of background, in May of 2021, citywide zone map letters, amendment letters were sent out to various citizens. In July of 2021, a pre-development meeting was held, and then a follow-up was held in August of 2022. And then in September of 2022, application for the zone map amendment from single-family residential R1 to mixed residential with the intent to construct a duplex was received.
Okay.
So just as a matter of, for those in the audience, the applicant is Elizabeth Hill, which is actually the daughter of the owner of the property, Richard Bingham, who's here to present. Their property is located, the property that we're looking at for the rezone is on the northeast corner of East Hayden Avenue and North Melrose Street.
Donna, could you, just to give us some point of reference, could you tell us what businesses may be in the general vicinity of?
This is the old Hayden Lake Elementary School property that's here. This is Avondale Irrigation District. This is Yates Funeral Home.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Just as a matter of reference. This one you want to leave up? They want me to leave up? Okay, it's all yours.
Good evening. My name is Richard Bingham. I am the owner of the property in question, 235 East Hayden Avenue. We have requested a change to the zoning so that we can build a duplex. As well, the current state of housing in the area is rather difficult for young folks to try to purchase or find some place to live that's reasonable. My wife and I have 7 children. We have a couple of children that have decided to move back to the area in the last couple of years. And they've been having a very difficult time finding places to live. We purchased this property a number of years ago. It happened to be a drug house, and we lived next door, and we didn't like having drugs being distributed next to our property. And so when it came for sale, we purchased the property with the intent to remodel the home and use it as a rental property. As we delved into working on the home, found out that it was riddled with mold and some other issues. And so we turned it into a business storage location and decided that we'd like to build another structure on a duplex so that our daughter Elizabeth and her husband and her young family can move into it, and we'd rent out the other side. That's just a basic quick rundown of our desires there. We've had a couple of meetings, as was mentioned, with the city to ascertain what it is we could and could not do with the property. Currently, the property has access from Hayden Avenue, and we have decided to have access changed from Hayden Avenue to Melrose Avenue, which decreases the load on Hayden Avenue. The duplex itself will have 2 stories, 1 level below ground, 1 level main level. It'll have 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a couple of living areas in the kitchen. Pretty basic duplex, but they'll be very amply sized for family to live in there and for whatever period of time they'd like. And I guess I don't really have any other further comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council members have questions of Mr. Bingham? Councilmember White.
Oh, well, I think this is really nice, families working together, and it's kind of the American dream to be able to provide a home for your kids, all that. I was just wondering, under single-family residential, you are allowed to build an accessory dwelling unit. I was just wondering if you'd considered that before entering this project.
We had. The confines of the property make it rather difficult to do that because the accessory dwelling unit is maximum, I believe, 900 square feet in the city of Hayden. That makes it rather difficult to construct a building on there that has adequate parking for both the main structure as well as the auxiliary structure.
Okay. So you said it's going to be 4 bedrooms and 2 baths, is that? 4
Per unit.
bedrooms and 2 baths on each floor?
No, 2 bedrooms on each floor, 2 bedrooms on the main floor, 2 bedrooms on the lower level.
Okay, and 1 bath in each of the levels?
Correct. Two baths on the main floor, 1 bath on the lower level. So 3 bathrooms, my mistake.
All right. And, let's see. And what about parking? How's,
Parking, we have parking in the driveway. It's a 2-car garage. And so there's parking in the driveway. Melrose is a rather narrow street. And so there's not a lot of off-street parking there. So it is a dead-end street, cul-de-sac, if you will. So there's not a lot of traffic. So if somebody needs to park on the road, I suspect they probably will. But it's designed to have parking off-street in the parking areas.
okay. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember White. Councilmember DePriest.
Yes, thank you. This may be a question for either one of you, I guess. The property at the very top, it looks like, are those duplexes up there at the end of the road?
Duplexes and fourplexes.
Okay, and it looks like there's one on each side at the very top and then one below that. And so that basically that up above the top half of that almost are duplex and that it's almost all duplex and triplex.
Correct. I think of all the homes on the street there, I believe there's 3 single-family residences, perhaps 4, and the rest are either duplexes or
That's
fourplexes.
what it looks like. So it is zoned mixed residential and it already has a majority numbers of duplexes on that
Correct.
access road there.
Yeah, current zoning is R1, but we're looking for a mixed
Future
residential.
land use, yeah,
Yeah.
mixed residential, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
I had one more question.
Councilmember White.
What is the time frame in which you'd like to see the duplex built?
We'd like to have it done no later than next August.
Okay, so within a year?
Yes, if we receive approval from the city council, we'll immediately begin the process of getting permits and drawings finalized. There's been some changes to the final construction drawings as a result of our previous pre-development meeting. And once we have approval, the blessing from the city council, then we'll move forward with demolition and preparation of the site so we can construct as soon as weather permits.
Thank you.
Mr. Bingham, I have one quick question.
Yes.
I assume you're going to access this duplex off of Melrose and not Hayden
That's
Avenue?
correct. Yeah, not the street.
I just more of a comment than a question. If I read it correctly, the house is inhabitable. You can't live in it. So really, this is a way to make a property that could help some people live in. And right now, there's no one who can live in it. So
That is correct.
I see that as a good thing.
It's kind of an eyesore right now, quite frankly. And we'd like to improve the neighborhood and make it look nice.
Thank you, Mr. Bingham. We appreciate your presentation.
Pleasure.
Donna, would you care to give us a summary of the staff report?
While she's going up there, I'll just mention Eric Smith from Lake City Law got here covering for Fonda tonight if you have any questions.
So, as you said, this is a summary of the staff review that you guys have received in your council packets. There are 4 standards of approval for all zone map amendments. The first one talks about whether or not there should be any additional studies or plans in order to make a decision. The 2040 comprehensive plan shows this property as mixed residential. And as such, the Imagine Hayden plans modeled the density based on this land use designation, and therefore staff did not determine that additional studies or plans were required. The second one is that the city council may impose conditions upon rezoning where such conditions are required to ensure that proposed uses of the area are consistent with community needs and its public health, safety, and general welfare. And the Planning and Zoning Commission may recommend conditions upon rezoning for the city council's consideration. The Planning and Zoning Commission did not recommend any conditions of approval for this zone. And the applicant's narrative identified that this is in line with the City of Hayden's plans for future land use. That further, this proposed change is highly compatible with the surrounding area. As Councilmember DePriest already called out, there are 5 duplexes and 1 fourplex on this same road. All necessary public facilities are available to support the proposed duplex that will be built on this property should this zone map amendment be approved. And currently, 235 East Hayden Avenue hosts a single-family home that due to disrepair is uninhabitable. The approval of this zone change will allow for the removal of this unusable and unsightly structure, and the construction of a new and attractive duplex will help address the housing. That's all out of the applicant's narrative. So this is the future land use map, and you can see that it is kind of in the middle of a mixed residential. Mixed residential would allow duplexes, triplexes, single-family residences that exist on that road today. Mixed residential can accommodate that range of residential structures we just talked about, and the land use regulations will be applied in ways that respect public needs, minimize conflicts with nearby land uses, and protect the private property rights of landowners. There's kind of a summary of the goals that are in your staff review, and then in the appendix of your staff review are all the goals for the comprehensive plan. But just kind of to summarize the summary there, this talks mostly about mixes of land uses and densities and housing types, promoting greater choices and opportunities, and encouraging development within the city, preserve, protect, and strengthen the vitality of stability of existing neighborhoods. We want to ensure that all development can be serviced by public facilities. Ensure that ordinances and policies don't violate private property rights or adversely impact property values or create unnecessary limitations on land uses. And then again, promote and encourage the development and rehabilitation of quality housing through a variety of housing options. And policies that are kind of summarized here is that development should be compatible with the land use chapter of the comp plan and be fiscally responsible. And encourage rezoning to support the creation of strategic nodes or higher density development in this case, and transition zones between residential and industrial uses. And then the amendment to the zoning map and zone text shall align with the zone district's purpose and intent. So today the property is zoned single-family residential. The single-family residential zone provides for that classic Hayden neighborhood where single-family homes on smaller lots are permitted and accessory dwelling units are permitted, but two-family dwellings are not. So again, Councilmember DePriest asked about what else was on that road, and we'll show a slide here that kind of shows that in blown up a little bit. But all of that is zoned single-family residential because previously you could have duplexes in single-family residential, but today you cannot have duplexes as an allowed use. Mixed residential is the only zone that would allow for a two-family structure to be constructed in the city codes today. So this is the zone map, and that is this is commercial that's over here, and this pink that literally blends in on all the zoning maps when we printed them, but you can see that it's pink kind of there, we're fixing that, is the central business district. Again, that's the school site. This is Melrose, it's in single-family residential, and then this is Yates that was zoned commercial. So this is kind of a blow-up of Melrose, the whole street. And so you've got, these are all duplexes. This is a multifamily unit, that's a fourplex. And these are duplexes both ways as well. So the whole kind of end of the street is more than a single-family detached housing.
Donna, kind of off the topic here, I think, but what is that loop-looking property line right up there? Looks like, what is that?
It's a wannabe cul-de-sac.
So who owns the property in the center of the loop, I guess?
As far as this up here?
No, down right where the arrow is now. Who, if that looks like it's enclosed.
It's city right away.
Oh, okay.
So infrastructure, the city of Hayden provided a sewer will serve letter. Avondale Irrigation District provided comments related to construction and has no problem with the zone map amendment request. Dry utilities are there with gas, electric, cable, and phone, and they shall be installed underground as part of any future development. So as they build the house, the services will be installed underground. Dedications of right-of-way and grants of easement to be a condition of future building permits as required by city code for Hayden and Melrose. Public agency and public comments. Harbs had no comments. Avondale Irrigation District noted an 8-inch water main along the southern boundary, but again, had no issues with the request. Coeur d'Alene Airport had no comments, requested an navigation easement. Kootenai Electric had no comments. Idaho Department of Environmental Quality said no environmental impacts. And to date, with 2 notices out and the property posted, we've received no public comments.
How many did you send out?
I would have to look that up, but it's a 300-foot radius from
So
the
as far
property.
as public agencies?
22 plus or minus.
And all we got is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 returned?
Pretty standard. Pretty standard. So those are the 4 standards of approval, if we'd like to leave those up. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended to approve the zone map amendment from single-family residential to mixed residential. And at the time of the city council decision, the city council, prior to adopting, revising, or rejecting the amendment to zoning ordinances or maps, and having made no material changes from what was presented at the Planning and Zoning Commission and/or the city council public hearing, shall make a decision. And upon granting or denying an application to amend the zoning map, the city council shall specify in writing, that's the written decision when it's all done, the ordinances and standards used in evaluating the application, the reasons for the approval or the denial, and the actions, if any, that the applicant could take to obtain a permit should it be denied. So the city council may approve with conditions, or deny the zone map amendment request. And that's all I have.
Any member of council have any questions of Donna on this yet?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember White.
Donna, we spoke earlier about accessory dwelling units, and you were saying that they can be 1,000 square feet? Mm-hmm. Okay. And they can be attached to a house?
They can.
Okay. Can they be above a house, like 2-story?
We've never had that request to have an ADU. I'm not saying you couldn't, you probably could. You'd have to meet access requirements to the ADU, and you would have to meet the size requirements. And so, yes, you could.
Okay, so it's possible. Okay.
Other questions?
I might have another one in a little bit, but
Okay,
I'll let others speak.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate it.
Do you want me to leave this one up?
If you would, please. Thank you. We're now to our public comment section of the public hearing. Any commenters must complete a comment form on the back of the table that's back there and specify whether you are in favor of, neutral, or opposed to the proposal. The commenters will be called upon in order of those who support, who are neutral, and who are opposed. Commenters will address the council, not the audience. Must state your name and whether or not you are citizens of the city of Hayden, Idaho. And comments are limited to 5 minutes. I will notify any commenter at 4 minutes with waving a piece of paper that you have 1 minute to go. Do we have anyone who would care to make a comment regarding this application? Again, I do not see a stampede to the back of the room. Okay. It does not look like we have any comments on this. Generally, Mr. Brigham, I would allow you an opportunity for a rebuttal for any comments, but since there are none, I believe we're good. At this point, it is 5:30. I'm closing the public hearing, and we will move into council deliberations. Members of council, comments, observations about the proposal?
I'll start.
Councilmember Dupree.
Sure, I'll start. Yeah, a couple things here that have already been touched on. I think it's very important that we've heard a term of late about fitting the context of the neighborhood. And I think a duplex does in fact fit the context of the existing neighborhood. So I would be inclined to approve it along those bases. And it also, I I drive Hayden quite a bit. I know the property, and it is going to eliminate an eyesore, and will provide additional housing, which I'm assuming would be an affordable range. I don't know, but it's additional housing, and for those reasons, I would approve it.
Council President Roder, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I see it as meeting the 4 standards of approval. I see that planning and zoning approved it, so I'm in favor of it.
Councilmember Satterfield, do you have any comments?
I think it's compatible with the neighborhood, and it's something that the city encourages is infill. And as the other council members have mentioned, it is an eyesore, so I think it's an improvement all the way around.
Thank you. Councilmember White?
Yes, I like the idea of families being able to help each other. I'm concerned about the unintended consequences of the zone change leading to a precedent for other properties around it. So I would like to add a condition that the property, that the building be done within the next 2 years, and that the property not be sold within the next 2 years in order to keep the zone change. And according to the property owners, they're intending to build in the next year anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. But I would like to see that condition applied.
Can I?
Other, Councilmember
Thank you.
Reese?
May I ask a question of legal? Could we make that condition that a property could not be sold?
That's pretty unusual. I'm just speaking with Brad. I haven't heard of that before.
What do you think we would stand legally trying to tell somebody when they could or could
You're
not sell
infringing
it?
on the right of private property ownership. You certainly have a lot of power in which to make it a conditional approval and conditions, but usually for planning purposes and things like that, a restriction on the right to sell the property. I don't know off the top of my head, but that seems a little severe.
We do have the ability to place a condition about the building time, though, within 2 years.
Correct.
But selling the property or not selling the property
And you could expedite that time as well.
is kind of on the line somewhere, you think, maybe, or
It is.
potential.
It is.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I have a question, Mayor, regarding, if I can ask
Mr. Roder?
Councilmember White, what would be the reason to have a condition that they have to build within 2 years? I'm just curious on what your thoughts are.
Yes, in the past few months, we've seen a couple of zone changes that we've approved of, and then the properties were turned around and sold with the new zoning. And I would just like to make sure that this is going to be applied in this, because it's setting a precedent for this mixed residential zone to be brought forward. And I think that as far as single family, they could still accomplish their goal. They could still have a rental property. They could still fix up the house or rebuild the house. They could have them attached to each other. I think they could still accomplish their goals, but in the spirit of their family wanting to build this duplex, I would be willing to say yes to this, but I would just like to protect the city from it being turned around and just sold. That's all. And I don't think they would do that. I don't think that's the spirit of this.
We have other questions or comments?
I have one comment.
Councilmember Satterfield?
I'm going to have to disagree with Councilmember White. I think that saying they can't sell the property smacks in the face of property rights. And I would not want that condition put on me. I understand where she's coming from on this, but, things happen to people. 2 days from now, this may get blown out of the water because there's some type of family issue and stuff. So I I just think it's compatible and it works for the neighborhood. And he's already stated that there was mold and other issues with the house, and I think just looking at it, it does need to be torn down. I'd even come over and help him. Not all day, though.
And not on Monday evenings.
Yeah, for sure not on Mondays.
Councilmember White.
I'm not saying they can't sell it. I'm just saying that the zoning would not transfer with the selling. But I would be willing to modify that just to say that, that the project should be accomplished within 2 years. I would modify it to that.
Other comments or questions from council members? Councilmember White, would you care to make a motion?
Yes. Okay. I move that we approve PZE 220125 Bingham Zone Map Amendment with the condition that the owners have 2 years to complete the development.
Do I have a second? Okay, motion fails for lack of a second. Would another council member wish to make a motion?
Sure, I'll give it a try. I would move to approve PZE 22-0125 Bingham Zone Map Amendment Request.
Second. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second. Do we have any further discussion on the issue? Hearing none, roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
No.
Council President Roder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. We all appreciate the little guy, too.
Yeah, he's a cutie. He was good. He was really good.
Thank you, Don. Moving on to item number 4 for new business. We have a discussion amongst council members, and my expectation at the end of this would not be a motion, but perhaps to provide city staff with some more direction as to what you might like or not like to do regarding a public survey or a public questionnaire. Council members, would anyone care to lead the discussion off?
Sure, I'll start it.
Councilmember DePriest, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I agree with what you said. Instead of survey, I would use the term questionnaire. Because at least from my point of view here, I'm going to read something here in a second that is going to kind of lead into what spurred this. We're just trying to figure out, we're a couple years into the Imagine Hayden now, the 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map, and we're kind of starting to see where it's going, how it's affecting the community as a whole. Hearing what the people think about it and the like. And I'm reading from the written comments that were submitted during the this is a public input summary report from, I guess, during the development of it. And I'm going to cut into the middle of this because I guess I'll read the whole thing. I feel that being forced to rate some of the previous questions 1 to 9 forces me to rate some higher than I would like. I feel 6 of the options are 9 and I'm unable to state that. This may cause areas to be falsely understood as fairly important when they are not. Now here's what caught my attention and is something that I have heard, and I will admit that I kind of feel this way too. The survey is not asking for input, but trying to manipulate people's answers to fit an agenda already laid out. We live in Hayden because we like the small town feel and have no desire to live in urban Washington or California. How about a focus on quality community rather than how many individuals we can fit into the limited space? So going from there, the idea of having a questionnaire is to try and gather some valid data, valid comments, because when we have public hearings regarding zone changes and various things, we're told that we don't have any valid data as to what the community feels about this. That, you know, it's all subjective and you're just, and it's not valid, I guess. I went to, well, let's put this, I went to the Coeur d'Alene open house, if you want to put it that way, when they were doing their comprehensive plan. I attended the Lakeland Rathdrum open house. I've seen pictures of ours and Post Falls, and they are all cookie cutter. I believe it's Opticos plan with the boards and the tables and the sticky dots and all these other things. And from what I've gathered, because I didn't even know what was going on at the time, and I'm a Hayden resident, but others have also said they weren't aware of it. But basically, the feeling is that, and it's kind of what this comment says, people were told, this is what's going to happen, okay? Here's your choices. How, you know, what do you want? They weren't asked, do you want to manage this possibly? And not just say, okay, it's going to happen, we have to live with it. We have to take it all, or whatever it is. If it were me, and if I doubt whether I'll be here next time. I don't know when the next comprehensive plan will be reviewed and done again. But I will be very insistent, vocal, whatever you want to call it, that the very first board question, whatever, is something to the effect of, and I'm just going to use numbers here. The current population of Hayden is 20,000. Considering the quality of life, use of recreation, services, structure the question however, but basically saying, what do the people of Hayden want? And give them a sticky dot to put on 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and then go from there. Because that would be, to me, an indication of what the people want to see, and then work from that. Instead of basically being said, hey, this is what's going to happen, and then having to work from that. So I'm going to stop here because I have several other points to make during this, but real quick, I went back and I looked at the 208 comprehensive plan update and the future land use map and land use map legend and the residential density types. And I'm not so sure why they had to get so complicated with this. For example, the density type, low density, average density of 1 to 4, medium density, average density of 4 to 7, high density, average density of 7 to 12. And you can't.
Is that dwellings per acre?
Yeah, dwellings per acre.
Thank you.
And this isn't in color, but I think maybe we should project it up here, maybe. But it allows for, if you ask me, in my opinion, a much broader leeway on what goes where, and does this actually fit in this location at this time? Now, I believe that within the city limits right now, it's going to develop over the next years, and we're going to have some form of development within our boundaries. So we're going to need to widen the roads regardless of the density, if you ask me, because we're getting so much bleed through from the other towns. Okay, we're going to need sewer and water to our boundaries and the like, because there is going to be this development there anyway. So considering really tearing the whole thing apart to do it again, the more I look at this, I struggle with that, but I would just like to get the people's, to formulate a way to put a questionnaire to get the people's ideas.
Thank you. Council members, because our topic tonight is specifically the questionnaire, I'd appreciate us trying to limit our questions or our discussion tonight to a questionnaire itself. I certainly understand that you want to get people's opinions.
The reason for it, yeah.
Other council members?
Well,
Councilmember White.
I'd like to hear, who else brought forward the idea of a questionnaire?
Councilmember Satterfield at previous council meeting had asked about that.
Okay, I'd like to hear their ideas first, or his ideas first.
Council President Roder?
Thank you, Mayor.
Knock on his door.
It's a topic that I have brought up in the past. And the reason why is that I know that the 2040 comp plan missed the will of the people. And I say that statement after going through the comp plan and looking at who was surveyed and who was added input for the development of the comp plan. And it wasn't a very high number of individuals, like 150. So what I would like to see, my goal would be identifying with a questionnaire, and I say a questionnaire versus a survey. I'd like to see a questionnaire that would be developed, the questions would be developed by the council, something that this is to be used for us. We would like to know what the people want. What do they see? What do they want as a future? I believe I know a fair amount of what our residents want, but I think we need that pure data. You know, if we were to send out a questionnaire to every voter or every property owner in Hayden asking very specific questions. I don't want a consultant that we're going to pay $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 to develop it, and the questions are such that, it's not the kind of input that we would want necessarily. I would like to see a questionnaire again that we would develop the questionnaire. I would like the scientific aspect of it would be the accounting of it. In other words, if we send out, say, 10,000 of them, that 6,000 say X, or 5,000 say Y. That kind of data I would like to use then for looking at our comp plan and looking at the future, because that document, it goes back to our governance. It's we the people determine what our government's to be and where we go. And our comp plan has missed that. We had input from way too many people with financial interest, which is, capitalism, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But we need to get the voice of the people. And this questionnaire would not be, in my opinion, that expensive. We have also had a gentleman on the P&Z, Keith.
Yeah, I can't remember his last name.
That is an IT guy, software guy, that said it would be very inexpensive to put up a website where people could refer to or put their answers in to a questionnaire. But I would highly recommend for the council to get an exact direction from the people of Hayden. Where do they want to go with our city? And now the other thing we need to factor into, and I just got this data from the mayor, he called me and said the KMPO has now revised our projected population in 2040 from being 36,000 down to about 28. So that should factor into where we go as a city too. So it actually gives some justification to reevaluate our direction because of that change. But that's kind of all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Roder. Councilmember Satterfield.
I like the idea of asking the people what they want. And I would like to somehow see that how we can get more participation. Because I live in an older neighborhood, and the folks that live in my neighborhood, I don't know that they'll participate because they're happy. They aren't faced with a lot of the traffic and stuff that these new developments and stuff are seeing. But I also think that we should have, after the questionnaire, we should have some sort of town hall meetings or something so we can discuss it with the folks, because there's so much misinformation out there. There's so much information that they don't understand, because as everyone up here knows, sometimes we're put between a rock and a hard place and we don't have. And it'd be nice to try and educate the public on on some of that. So I'm fully behind a questionnaire type thing, and I agree with Councilman Roeder. I think we should develop one amongst us, but I also think we should follow up with maybe an answer or a discussion period with the public to make sure they truly understand. You know, I keep hearing that people move here because of the small town feel. Well, having lived here 60 years, it hasn't been a small town for a long time to me. But one of the questions was, what do these new folks consider? You know, I understand if you move from Seattle, this is a small town. But some of the questions I'd like to propose is, how do they view what a small town actually is? Because I think that would be beneficial to all of us up here on the direction we go. So anyway, I don't want to ramble on anymore. So
Thank you for your comments. Councilmember White.
I just have a few questions like, what are some of the possible questions to ask? What are some of the ideas that Councilmember DePriest or Roeder have about what questions to be on there?
Sure. No, go ahead. If you want to go first.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. I wasn't prepared to bring those questions here tonight. We were just talking about the questionnaire, but I would like to get the pulse of the people of whether they feel that we should go with higher development construction. Should we move at a fast pace with development? Are they willing to pay for the cost of growth, which is a function of we need more roads, we need more infrastructure. Are they willing to participate in the cost of growth? Are some of the few ones that come to mind. And one of the things Roger brought up is, define what is a small town? You know, what do you want that to be? Maybe we ask the question that we're at 16,000, and I think Ed alluded to this. Well, should we look at trying to design the growth model to be 25,000 in 2040? You know, you could ask about where you'd like to see the population go. Like for that affordable housing coalition, they said the three things that they surveyed people, they said the number one thing is they want to protect open space. That could be a question. Do we want to protect, and how we do that? The other thing was education. How do you pay for education, and how does that affect? And then roads. Those are the three. I may have gotten the order 2 and 3 wrong, but I think those are kind of where we could go with our questionnaire. We already have some answers from that coalition about what the 3 top are, but I want to center that more into what the people of Hayden.
Okay, I would. Sure, thank you. Again, it would take a workshop with the council, I would say, planning people, how to actually come up with the exact wording of these. But in general, you know, a question I'd want to know is, do you feel we're headed in the right direction growth-wise? Then that's pretty basic and broad right now, but that's what I want to get the most. Do you think we're going the right direction? You know, and again, as Council President Roeder said, and I believe I said at the beginning, I think people taking in, when they get in their car, just when they wake up in the morning and they go through their daily lives, they get in their car, they drive, they go to Honeysuckle Beach, they go to the store, they take their kids to school, etc. They try to, you know, just their daily lives. How do they consider the direction we're heading when it comes to their quality of life? Are they fine with it? Do they think we need to adjust in certain ways, and how, you know, what is their idea of that? But those are the 2 main things, is how's the city doing? How do you think we're doing with this? And do you think we should manage the projected growth and density the way it is, or maybe revise it and take a different look at how it is laid out over the next 15 to 20 years.
Councilmember White, do you have other questions or comments at this moment?
Yeah, I think I need, personally, I need more convincing that this is a need. I feel like a year ago, when people voted, that they pretty much told us what they wanted, that they were voting in 2 new council members that ran on a slower growth platform. And I believe they expected us to make changes to the future land use map that would protect the city from growing a lot slower than it is. So I'm leaning towards us doing, rather than doing a survey, is that we take a look at the standards of approval and make the changes to that we need to give the council more discretion in the direction of the city. And that we take another look at the future land use map and move it closer to what we have in today's zoning map, so we're not forced to keep growing. So that's the direction I'm leaning.
Okay, thank you. If I might just jump in here for a moment, of course, council can decide whatever council wants to, but I think it's worth taking a step back and saying, are we listening to the same 500 people that are complaining to us all the time about growth? Or do all 16,000 people feel that way? I think it's a valid question. The only way to figure that out is to take our questionnaire instead of what Mr. Gibson offered, which is just if you want to fill out the questionnaire, sign on the website and we'll take your input. That will likely not give us the true picture of what the citizens of Hayden are feeling. In order to be statistically valid, we need to very carefully construct who that questionnaire goes to and make sure that the folks that it goes to answer the questions. When we do that, at that point, we have a statistical sample, and whether we get all 16,000 that say, yeah, this did not go the right way, or we get 16,000 that mostly say we're happy with the way they are, I don't think that's what's going to happen, but we need to be aware of that. We do need to have some statistically valid sample of the public in order to get the view of all the people, not just the ones that we all know we hear about all the time. Other questions and comments?
Just a comment, if I may. I think that 16,000 includes 1-year-olds to 80-year-olds. So I think that we could narrow this down.
Good point.
And I'll go back to property owners, because those are the people that are paying the taxes to support our city. And because of that, they should have a say. So I would like to see this centered on property owners. Now, that means that they don't necessarily need to be a resident, because we have people that own property within Hayden that don't live here, and they own commercial property. But again, they're paying taxes to our city, and they should have a say. So maybe that number is, I'm just 8,000. But I think that would give us a very good sampling if property owners, what they have to say. And who knows, I know Roger was saying, who knows whether they'll participate. Well, if they don't want to have a say where the city's going, that's their decision. And that's the way it is.
I get your point, and certainly it does include people of all ages. And property owners might be a good place to put this, but I would suggest to council that we still need, if we decide to go with a survey, we still need to have a representative sample. Basically, it's a random sample of property owners to see where the citizens want us to go. If we come up, certainly with deference to Councilmember White's concerns, if we decide to go with a questionnaire, simply sending this to 8,000 property owners, we may very well only get back questionnaires from the 500 who really have strong feelings about it. People that are happy with it will likely say nothing at all and toss it in the trash can. Councilmember.
Well,
Priest.
therein lies the trick, basically, and it's the same thing with people who vote or don't vote. And we had a very good turnout this last election, considering the usual turnout to vote. But that's the trick, is to get people to participate and find how, and I would lean towards the property owners, because that way you're going to get back those who want to send back. Whereas if you, how are you going to determine what other, let's say we're going to send it to 4,000 people. Well, how do you determine the likelihood that those 4,000 are more likely to respond than those who don't receive the opportunity? Because that's, if someone could come up with that answer, they'd make themselves a lot of money as an election consultant or something like that. And who's going to participate, who's actually going to respond, and who's going to participate. I agree with Council President Roeder that as many property owners as possible. I understand what you're saying. But then I think no matter what, you're just kind of tossing a coin. You know, you're going to distribute these out, and you're only going to get a certain percentage no matter who, unless you can come up with a foolproof way to identify these people will respond, if that makes sense.
Rick Boyer.
You want me to weigh in? I was trying to write down your thoughts and comments here to address these. And the mayor and I did, we talked about this a little bit before. Let me step back. I'll try and hit all the items that I have written here. First, from the comp plan that we did previously, and I don't want to make this about the comp plan, but there could be some questions about that. There were stakeholder interviews, and those were people that had probably a financial interest in some of those things, and that was a smaller number. We had the open house where we had people, invited everybody to come in. We had it in the paper. I did all of that. People came to the school, and we had over 100 people come, which for processes like this that I've seen, that was actually a lot of people. Then we had a questionnaire that went out. It wasn't a scientific survey, and there was over 400 people responded to that. We don't know who they are. Or there was some data that was, I think, that gave a little bit of that information. And so we didn't have a true scientific survey. If we want to do a scientific survey where you really want to know within a certain degree of certainty, you do a scientific survey, and that's where the professional comes in. The randomness is what tells you that this is within a certain degree of certainty, but you have to have a sample size that they determine. So you might have a sample size of 1,000 people, and so you want to make sure you get to that sample size and that it's random, and those are the two features that will make that. When we say scientific survey, something that you can rely on to say this is what our folks are saying. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is the questions and how you ask those. I heard you bring up questions, and from just your questions, I'm looking at that going, okay, did you mean this? Did you mean this? Did you mean this? Did you mean this? And you have the issue of, are the people educated in what we're talking about the same way? And so you have to be very careful in how you answer the questions. And so my suggestion would be, so that you are involved in getting what the questions that you want answered, is you can come up with, like, you could write your questions out, or you could write the topics or the areas, and you would put those together. And then if we had hired somebody, then we can get somebody that then can answer those questions. I'm not an expert in this, but in my education and schooling, we were required to take statistics and go through and do surveys. And there's a lot to putting a survey together to make sure that the information is good and valid. If you just want to hear from whoever wants to who is interested in coming in. You could do that. And that's just, we take it to Super One and we put it on Keith's website, and whoever responds to the questions, that's what it is. But if you really want to know, we have to put a little bit more effort into it. And you're right, a survey is would probably cost us, from in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $25,000. I have 3 companies that I've checked into, and one of them is, like a person that comes in and works with you and talks to you about the questions and says, and helps guide you through the pitfalls of getting the questions done. And then they, as part of that too, they test the sample. They'll take the survey that you think you've got, and you take it out there to citizens and say, okay, will you take this survey? And then they give you comments. I didn't understand this, or I didn't see this, or whatever. And then they bring it back, and then they fix the survey, and then you send it out. And then they help you with, generally, it's probably, they'll do like a phone survey. So I think tonight, what we wanted to hear is, do you want to do something like this? And you can direct it. And I think you can help with the questions, would be my suggestion. But then we have somebody that can write those to make sure that they're not, there's not misunderstanding in them. I think we want to know too, because, and I don't know if it was Matt brought it up before, but we have a couple areas that we want to look at. We've talked about a community center. Does a survey include just, do we want to keep it separate from, do we want to ask about how are we doing with growth and those kind of things here? Do we also want to include questions about like a community center and what would go in that, or do we want to keep them separate? But I've heard, we want to move on that path as well. So there's a little bit of work, and I probably would ask, this guy that I've talked with already on doing surveys, his thoughts on keeping it. Because another part of doing surveys is you have to keep them. They can't be too long, because then people won't stay on and answer the questions. They have to be simple and clear. So you can't just throw up a website like Keith said. I may appreciate that he offered that he could do that, but you don't know who's responding to that. You don't know the questions. You have to go through and have controls to make it, if you truly want to have an answer. Sorry, I wrote a ton of stuff on here while you guys were talking, and there were some good thoughts, some good ideas. So that's my suggestion would be, if you want to do it, we do need to get some professional help to design this. And I could be somebody that I get you the information, and they could, I don't know, be online and talk with us and answer some of your questions. But I do think where you start, like Matt said, you could take and go home, and for the next while or whatever, you think of what questions you're wanting to ask. And then we have a list of questions and areas, and then we have somebody help us work through that. So, because if you ask just the question of, how are we doing? That just is not going to compute to a lot of people are not paying attention in the city, and they have a lot of other things going on, and I would say a high percentage of the people in the city have no idea what's in the comp plan, or what changes have been made in the last 2 years in relation to it. And so you got to get back to maybe, as far as growth questions or traffic questions that they understand, they deal with every day, and how do you write that? So anyways, sorry, I'm going on, I'm rambling, but I think it's important. I do think that it would be good to do and gather some information. Information is always good in making decisions. But I do think we ought to do it right. And that doesn't mean not having you kind of direct it. I mean, this person could come up with the questions, and they have to be approved by you before they go out, kind of thing. So you have control that these are the questions we want to give out to the citizens. So.
Question, Mr. Priest.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think what Brett just said there is, I think the reason that this was brought up to have this discussion exactly, just to open the door here and say what we want to do, and if we do want to do, what is the process that we want to move forward with. I would ask others, I guess, if they were interested in even moving forward, first of all, and as Brett suggested, finding one or two, talk to a couple different people, to then maybe meet with them and understand what that process would be, and get a better understanding of whether or not we felt that it would be beneficial to do.
May I, what I'm hearing, if I might ask council members, I'm assuming that this is in preparation for us looking at potential revisions to the comprehensive plan. Is that correct? Not correct? Do you guys just want to find out specific items on growth? I'll just let that question hang. Councilmember White.
Yeah, I think before we would go any further on this, we should have a cost analysis, and we should have also a time analysis. I would like to know how long a survey like this would take from the conception to getting the results, and maybe even having a town hall to look at the results. But meanwhile, I would just like to, I would like to hear from the public as well and know what they're thinking. I'd just like to encourage our constituents to be writing to us, even starting now. If they have ideas of the direction we're going, if they're happy with what we're doing, not happy with what we're doing, if they would like to see us make changes to the comp plan or traffic or whatever, I would like to hear from people even now. They can just write to us. Our email addresses are on the city website, and we're pretty good at responding to stuff. And I would love to hear from the people.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Satterfield.
I think the points Brett brought up are great points. I've sat here times when we've done a new ordinance or something and 5 people show up that are against it. Does that mean the other 15,000 are for it? I don't know. So somehow we have to have some way of getting more participation, but there's a lot of apathy out there. I mean, look at how many people vote. And I would say if we're going to get a hold of property owners, we should also get a hold of the voters, because Matt brought up a good point. If they don't care enough to participate, and the voters seem to be caring enough, they are participating. So I would like to add them to the list of people that we may contact or get a hold of. But I look at this questionnaire as the next step. The people have pretty much said they don't want to see rampant, out of control growth. But now let's get the details of what they want. That's a pretty general, broad statement. Let's see if we can get some details. What is it that they don't like about it, or what is it they'd like to see us do? But I still think, asking the public, I just wish I had the magic wand to get more of them to participate.
Would it be, from what I'm hearing from council, would it be the consensus of the council to ask Brett to get a hold of some, I'll just call them polling companies, survey companies, to get, as Councilmember White mentioned, get some ideas on cost, get some ideas on time, these types of things? Is that what I'm hearing?
I have a question for Brad, if I may. I'm in the middle of something that's somewhat similar to this, in that it's called a representative sampling. and where it's statistically based. Instead of testing 1,000 items, you're able to test, and there's the math behind it says that you test like half plus one. That gives you a true sampling. You don't have to test all of them, but that, at least in the court of law, it will hold up. So my question is this, first off, if you know the answer to this, is that what will give us as council members a truer response by either a complete mailing to, say, all the property owners or a representative sampling? And so, because we were talking about a complete versus a statistically based one, sampling, which is more true? And that's this question I'm going to ask you.
Well, from thinking back in the school days, you're hitting on, there's two ways to get a scientific survey. You can sample the entire, if you sample let me say this differently. You can do it as a sample, meaning you have to decide what an adequate sample size would be. Like in the city of Rathdrum, when we looked at, and we did a survey there for going up on the mountain, the accurate sample size and the population at the time was probably 7,000 to 8,000 with 600 people. But you had to, and it was random. So, or the other sample is, or way to do it is you have to basically ask everyone. So you ask everyone, but the issue is if you mail it out, who's going to participate? And so I'm guessing the professional that does this all the time would say the sample is more scientifically accurate because you don't know who's, if you send it out to 8,000 households in the city of Hayden and you get a certain number back, you don't know who's maybe responding completely. So I'll ask that question. It's a good question.
If I may, if we're going to ask for some costs, let's see what a cost is to do a complete mailing versus a scientifically surveyed representative sampling. And then we can maybe talk to whomever presents this cost to then determine, but I don't think we need to do that tonight. I like to see both. And
I'll get more information. It's been a while since my statistics passed, but.
If we're moving forward, I support 100% that we put together a questionnaire, and if it's done with a consulting firm to guide us, we need to look at that, but I'm fully supportive of that. And to answer your question, so what do we do with that? And what I'd like to do with it is compare that to where our comp plan is to see if it's the voice of the people, if that voice is matching our comp plan currently or not. And that's where I'd like to go.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Council President Roeder, for clarification, are you wanting a cost for the mailing to every property in Hayden or the property owners?
For now, I would also like to have, I think it's a good idea because it'll cost more, is determined because there'll be people that don't own property but vote and reside in Hayden, is to add a complete questionnaire to go out to all property owners and voters in the city of Hayden.
Will they be able to, because there's going to be a lot of duplication there, are these firms able to, or were you?
I'm going to ask that. That's how they
digitized. I mean, they can take a county list of voters.
As long as you aren't getting duplication.
Oh, yeah, they can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can query that and sort it out. That's not an
Those
issue.
are some detailed questions we'll have to get an answer to. It's good questions. And what I heard from the council is wanting to have, some control and some direction on what the questions are and what you're asking. And I think we can make that work. You have some thought. I mean, you want to do it so you're not, when you do it, that there's not an issue with any kind of bias or anything. But I think we can get your input and questions.
I'd like to add something that Brett brought up here, because if we are looking at perhaps having a public vote on something in the future, I think this also gives us some good information on how to move if there's a willingness within the city population, specifically like a community center, for example.
Yeah,
That would be a good way to then get a handle.
Identify those
You got it. Or even a question about Honeysuckle Beach and what we'd like to do. You know, we could add a few other things here that may be an important topic that we would want input on.
there's lots of, I mean, we were talking just generally, how the city is doing, with our services and other things. Sometimes that's painful to ask those questions, but it also helps us get better. But we also have to maybe be targeted with this so we're not trying to bite off too much. But again, that's getting with somebody and asking some of those questions. So.
In an attempt to gain consensus, Councilmember White, does that sound reasonable to you? Would you support Brett making these additional inquiries?
Personally, I would like to hear from the people, but they can also write to us. But I won't stand in the way of Brett looking at a cost analysis of this. I don't want him to take too much time. I know he's a very busy person, but the other council members feel this is really important. We could at least look at the cost of it.
Mr. Satterfield, are you comfortable with taking?
Yes, and I agree with Matt that property owners and voters, I think with asking the voters, you're going to get a much broader participation. It's not going to be just from one group or one neighborhood or whatever. It's going to be a much broader scope. So I think we should move forward with it and have Brett do his thing.
I'll come back with information. It sounds like I've got that direction.
If everyone's comfortable with that. Oh, good. Great. Let's move on to our next action item. And that is to cancel or reschedule the December 27th city council meeting.
I think we heard last time that there were two council members who couldn't be here the 27th, and it's 2 days after Christmas, so we were suggesting we just cancel that.
Okay.
But it's up to the
Would you
council.
like to reschedule that?
How much do we have city business-wise?
Are we okay if we just cancel that,
We'll just pay bills on the 27th and then have them ratified at the next meeting.
the following meeting?
Okay. All right with everyone to just cancel that meeting then?
The 27th? Yeah. So we will still have the meeting on, what would that be, the 14th?
13th.
13th. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The regular schedule.
And the city Christmas party is the 8th, right?
Yep.
8th, and then a meeting on the 13th, and then not again until January
Correct.
10th.
Do I need to make a motion that we cancel this meeting we're talking about?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, I'll make that motion that we cancel the December 27th, 2022 city council meeting. And we don't need to reschedule another one because the next regularly scheduled meeting will occur in January, the second Tuesday of January, whatever date that is.
I think it's the 10th.
Second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please, Abby.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Satterfield?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
All right, moving on to our reports section. Brett, we have the city administrator report and the calendar review.
Just a couple quick things, and I just mentioned we have the city Christmas holiday party scheduled for December 8th. That's a Thursday night at 6 p.m. at Triple Play, and Sean was finalizing the food menu. She'll be sending that out, I think, Monday. And anyways, I think we have on there that those of you that, not everybody's going to want to, but while we were there, I think we were going to have the city, we were going to do one bowling. Those that wanted to bowl, we can rent multiple lanes and do kind of a bonding fun activity together as mayor, council, and staff. Hayden Lights is coming up. Susie's here, so that's December 3rd. That's our parade, and And we'll light the Christmas tree out here. I think they're going to be putting the decorations up on Monday. So we'll have tree lighting. And she said to have you here at City Hall at 4:30 if you want to be in the parade.
Right.
So
Will we meet at City Hall or back in the?
here at City Hall.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the mayor will be on he'll kind of lead the after the parade when we come out here and do a little bit of do the lighting and the other stuff. So during that period of time on Friday is the Chamber European Market will be out here, and there should be a lot of people here. So come and enjoy that as well. And then just as a reminder, so November 29th, just after Thanksgiving on that Tuesday, we have the continuation of the Madison Ranch meeting. And the last item, just as by way of information, we will be starting the remodel. They're supposed to start December 5th. And so one of the things that they've asked of us is on this side of the parking, during that period of time, because they're going to have materials and things that they need to be fairly close, that we'll probably cone off those parking spots that are on this side in this first parking lot. They will have to take that wall out that's to the left as you come in, and they will be putting up a full wall, just a temporary wall with some insulation, so it keeps it somewhat warm in here. And anyways, the only concern we had is they do have to order something with the elevator. They said that should be they can get started with everything else, but something with the elevator.
Are they going to be able to secure the building when that wall's out?
So yes is the simple answer. That was part of, so they did the pre-construction meeting, and that was on the list that was required, that they had to make sure that City Hall was locked up and secured. So I envisioned, it's a wooden wall. I imagine somebody could, bust into it, but they also can bust into glass and some other things. We will have we do have alarms in City Hall, and those will be working and active. And so I don't know. Alan's areas. He's got Dan helping with that, and he and Alan are doing that. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to.
It will be an insulated wall that will cordon off that part of the building, so it should be as secure as this wall.
How long is the anticipated construction going to take?
120 days.
How many?
4 months.
Oh, boy.
Plus or minus.
So the bad is it's during the cold months, but the good is during the warm months, that's when we have a lot of traffic with people that want to go upstairs, and we're not going to be able to have that same traffic upstairs. So
upstairs will not be able to talk to downstairs, so that'll be.
Will not be able to what? Talk to downstairs? Is that what they said?
We'll most likely be using the outside stairwell.
There will be internal connection from upstairs to downstairs. You'll have to go outside.
for a period of time. So
And we'll come downstairs for customers that need assistance, so. We'll make it work.
Thank you, Brett.
that's all. Thank you.
For our roundtable discussions, does any council member have anything that they would like to bring up with other council members tonight?
Everybody's looking at me.
Don't look at him.
Okay, yeah, well, it shouldn't be long. Just to follow up on the standards, there's only one that I'd like to consider adding back in, and that's the consistent with neighborhood context. But I guess everybody else, can, I don't know how we want to move forward with that consideration. I had also brought up basically amending the code text regarding codifying maximum density to avoid the ambiguity. And looking at it, we already have square footage on single families already basically there. residential suburban's already there. Mixed use is already there, so the only one that I'm really concerned about is the one that we had the most concern about, and that was with the 8 dwelling units an acre on mixed residential. So whether or not we wanted to consider codifying, adding to mixed residential the text of maximum 8 dwelling units. And that's it.
Would, in reference to that, would council like to, at our next regular scheduled meeting, have a discussion regarding adding neighborhood context into our standards of decision? Councilmember White.
Yeah, I would like to look at the standards of approval overall. Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay. Councilmember Satterfield, would you like to have that discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Rover?
Absolutely.
Okay, we will make that a yes.
Might I suggest, I mean, of course, but at least from that last meeting, I thought we heard the direction, and that's why I kind of asked Ed which ones, and I think we heard that the community character one was the one you were concerned with and adding back in, and so I've talked with Fonda and Donna about this already, and we, from our perspective, I mean, obviously you would need to approve it. We were going to put some language and just bring it forward.
Oh, well, good.
Because I thought that's what we heard from, it wasn't a vote or anything.
No.
But it was the kind of a direction that you wanted to modify that.
Just to kind of, I don't know, throw my 2 cents on that. I don't know why the old text couldn't just be added back in. If it were legal then and, and the like, why could it just be tacked back in about relating to context of the neighborhood?
I think I wanted to give them a shot at it if we're putting it back in. And I think I heard Fonda mention that she might tweak it slightly, but it's an opportunity to bring it back. I mean, we could bring it back for you to look at with the old language, or here and this is why maybe some wording changes.
Sure.
I haven't had a chance to get any wording from them, but we just thought instead of trying to have another meeting on it, we heard this is what you were concerned with, bring it back through. And if you just want to do that, you don't have to do it.
Do you think that you might be able to have some suggested language for us by next council meeting?
Yeah, Fonda and I drafted some very drafty language back and forth. She's kind of vetting it, so.
Okay.
So we already started moving in that direction.
Okay. Councilmember White.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to look at reinstating the 2016 standards that we had, rather than just piecemealing it back in. I would like to go back to what we had before. Could we look at that?
I'm wondering if that might most appropriately be a discussion item at a future council meeting or a workshop. Do you have any?
I think it would be an agenda item in the next meeting.
Agenda item in the next meeting?
Yes, that we could actually, vote on it and see if we want to move forward with it.
Okay.
Just look at the 2016 standards and take a look at it and see if that's what we want to just go back to.
We could do that.
It includes what Councilman DePriest was wanting to add back in. It includes that, so.
Can I comment?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you. We had the workshop, and I think through the workshop, and I agree with what was presented, that a lot of the current standards do take into consideration the 2016, is that the right year? For some reason, I think 2018, but whatever, the previous standards. But the one that really jumps out at me is the one about neighborhood context. After the workshop, that kind of came out of it with the feeling that, for the most part, the present incorporates the previous, with that one exception, in my opinion. So I'm going to guess that the to eliminate all of them, and it's not as easy as going, okay, delete, add, that there's probably a process that is, I don't know. It's lengthy.
Zone code text amendment follows the same process that a zone map amendment does. So a zone code text amendment has to go back through a public hearing with planning and zoning and a public hearing with city council with all the notices that you do in the paper and what have you. And you have to meet the existing standards of approval to add that text back in. So you have to show that that text amendment added back in meets the 4 standards of approval that exist today.
To add, to amend the text.
Anytime you add any text to Title 11,
Does it meet the
zoning
standard
code.
to amend the text?
I would still like to give Councilmember White, though, an opportunity to bring that up in council and have a council vote on it. Like to have an opportunity for a discussion and the opportunity to bring back the 2016 standards, which is what I believe I heard you say.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to make that an action item for our next meeting. She clearly feels strongly about it. I'd like to give her an opportunity to make a case for that.
Mayor, when you say next meeting, do you mean the next regular
Yes.
city council meeting, December 13th?
Yes.
Clarifying, it's not the 29th.
No, that's a special meeting.
Yeah. How about if we do it on
That's a
27th?
special meeting,
Just
right?
Correct.
Can I point out that at the December 13th meeting, you already have 2 public hearings that night, so, or a public hearing and a public meeting that night. So I don't know how lengthy this discussion would be. I'm just looking for timeline for meeting times. That's all I'm noting here. Not suggesting that we push it anywhere. I'm just,
Yeah,
in the
it
essence
could
of
potentially
time.
be a long meeting. I understand that.
We can bring that concept and we can bring the language changed and you could give us direction because that wouldn't be a public hearing for that night. It would just be for, here's the information, you give us direction on where you want to go.
So discussion, not an action?
No, I'd like to make that an action item.
So it's an action to direct staff what to do,
Yes.
and then we would be able to notice and.
Yes, the action will be to
review it.
direct staff to reinstate put the wheels in motion to reinstate the 2016 standards.
Okay, as well as in this, I would have no,
Well, the other action item would be giving staff direction on the language, the draft language that they will have for us to take a look at,
related to that.
related to the neighborhood context.
Right. And this is the second one that I talked about, and I have no problem with being pushed out until January, but in relation to the code text amendment with the 8 maximum dwellings on mixed residential, that would need to be probably the same process again, right? You have to,
Yeah, it's just that I'm confused. It's already there, so you just want to take it out of notes and put it somewhere else. That's
correct,
what you're
because
looking
there is a lot of ambiguity and assertions here and there, and I would like to eliminate the ability for people to say, well, it's not, and have to play the game where it's there it is.
Right, same place that mixed use is. It's also in notes.
Of course.
Councilmember White.
So I want to.
Could we also at the same time add lot size requirements, minimum lot size requirements for townhouses and cottages?
Okay, now this is where things are starting to get very.
It's blank, it's blank.
Let door open.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's,
We were trying to address the standards of approval, and focus there. I mean, if we want to do more, I would suggest we don't do it on the meeting at the 13th, just because you are going to have a heavy agenda.
I would like to keep this directed on standards of approval, and I appreciate your concerns about the 8 per,
That can wait.
but yeah,
Yeah, that can wait.
yeah. When we do that, maybe we can also address lot sizes.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on roundtable? Yes, sir, Mr. Roder.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two items that I'd like to bring up, and I think what I would ask is that we would have a discussion. I don't know, I'm not at a point where we could take action on it, because I really want the wisdom of the input from the council here and the mayor on these 2 issues. The 2 issues are this. One is two-story versus three-story buildings in Hayden. We allow three-story buildings, obviously, in certain zones. Carrington Meadows is, the apartments on Hayden Avenue, there's one of them. I know we have some other potential three stories. My issue with it is a life safety issue. And with discussion with the mayor, I found out that the Northern Lakes Fire District has the ability to go to a third-story window. They do not have the ability to get up on a roof of a three-story building. Now, you may say, well, so what? Well, having been a fireman, I was a volunteer fireman at the University of Idaho. They had a program with the volunteer fire department where you could live at the fire department and be a fireman, and then you would take the equipment to the fire, and then you had volunteers fight the fire along with the students. There were 12 of us there. One of the things we learned is that if you want to exhaust a fire, one of the most efficient ways is that you put a hole in a roof, and you open up the front door, and you let the water flow, and it goes through the building. So there is a deficiency, and I hate to use that word, but apparently there's an agreement between Northern Lakes and other fire districts to cover that deficiency, meaning whatever fire districts they are, Post Falls or Coeur d'Alene or even Kootenai County, they have an agreement that if we have a situation in Hayden where you have to get up on the third story roof, they'll aid. I'm not comfortable with that. I know that when we look at development or construction, we ask the question, does the project enhance the health, safety, and welfare of the city? And I don't see where, when there's a deficiency in coverage by the fire department that could put people at risk, is wise. It's not good common sense in my mind. And so I'm asking whether or not we could possibly discuss, there's nothing we can do about the three-story buildings that have been built so far. But what I would propose is that until that deficiency is corrected, where Northern Lakes can cover the third-story roof, that we don't approve third-story buildings. I don't want to put people at risk, even if it's one person. I don't think we as a city want to take on that liability either, that we're approving something that is not protected. So that's one discussion I'd like to have in the future. I don't know when the timing, I know we have a lot of things stacked up, but that's one item. The second item I have has to do with, Fonda brought this up at our last meeting about the cumulative effect of traffic based on, the cumulative effect of development. You have one development here, but it's not big enough to do a traffic study to see the impact on this intersection. Then you have another one, it's not big enough. Then you have another one. There's an accumulative effect. She wanted us to get that into if we want to make an issue of it. So I started thinking about that and said, is it possible, and this is the discussion item specifically, is can we require any development of any development of any size, whether it's minor or major, to do a traffic study to start to identify the accumulative effect of each development on the impacted intersection nearby. Now, in the city of Hayden, and I'm not sure, I'll have to ask the question, is there's modeling, computer modeling, that we have all our intersections identified within the city, and some percentage of them are graded. They go from A to F, and we know what F would be, but each leg of that intersection may have a different C, a D, and an F, but then we get an average. I would like to see this, the traffic impact study to see what would be the effect of that grading of that intersection. And if that intersection gets to be an F, we say no. I mean, at some point, we can't just keep going on and putting more pressure and more safety issues on an intersection. And we have the data. There's those traffic studies are done with the queue length, and I think they may even include the number of accidents and so forth. So that would be the discussion item, whether or not we could require any development to pay for a traffic study to see the impact on a impacted intersection, and that if it goes to a certain grade, that we can say no.
Questions or comments from other council members?
I think right along with that, one of my notes here that I passed on was looking at revising the traffic impact analysis trigger. How many actually trigger, again, it's that cumulative effect. Policy number 4 talks about the community-wide impacts, the cumulative effects. I agree. I think they're, when we only look at a traffic study surrounding this particular development, those additional vehicles that are going to come out of that development, along with this development, along with that development, affect policy number 4's community-wide impact. So I think that's kind of part of what you were talking about. So that needs to, I think this discussion needs to be had.
And I want, the wisdom of the council is what I'm looking for, because we need to talk about that. And that's, thank you, Ed. I'm sorry to jump in there.
Councilmember Satterfield, comments or questions? Okay. Councilmember White?
Yeah, I would like to agree with the different points that Council President Roeder brought up about the 3 stories and about the traffic being an issue, and I think we should look at those closer. I think also, I was noticing that not every department responds to the letters that we send out. So I would like to encourage the different departments that are out there, especially the sheriff and the fire department, to respond to the different requests we have for comments.
It sounds like we have a general consensus amongst the council at a future meeting to have a discussion about grading traffic intersections. So we will, it won't be for a next meeting or so. We may all need to bring our sleeping bags for our next meeting. But we will schedule something coming up to have that discussion.
Mayor, does that include the 3-story issue too?
It does not. Actually, I was only referring to the traffic study for these. Thank you for clarifying that. Council members, firefighting issue?
I agree that the firefighting issue is important.
Okay, it'll be both.
Thank you.
Thanks, sorry about that. Yeah. Any other comments or roundtable items? Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Don't need it.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
10 to 7.